join us in this exchange. Of course, most are aware that after the conclusion of the event, DISA will return on Friday for their annual forecast to industry. There are very few organizations that are as open and willing to share and have the discussion with industry as DISA. And so I want to commend General Skinner and his entire team for that dialogue that they will be having throughout the week, and especially on Friday as they give their forecast to industry. And that'll be conducted right here in Hall E. Most information is available on the app and on the conference website. Of course, I have to mention the importance of AFCEA and our membership and support of national security and our mission. So please consider membership in AFCEA if you're not a member at this point in time. Stop by our booth 1916, to learn more and join. You know, one of the points I like to make when we get into a forum like this, when we're looking for new members as we go forward, you know, professionals belong to professional associations. The doctors have the AMA, the American Medical Association. Lawyers have their own association, and the American Bar Association. Dentists have the American Dental Association. I could go on and down the list. You are the C4ISR community, the technology, the networking community, and we would welcome you to join us and use us as your professional association going forward. One of our membership benefits is a subscription to the award-winning Signal magazine. You can pick a copy up of the current issue upstairs at the registration booth in the lobby or at the Signal booth, which is number 2825. Inside, I'd like to draw your attention to a special feature this month of DISA-focused content and a DISA contracting guide. So Signal is not solely a magazine. Signal Media delivers content not only through the monthly magazine, but across a full range of media, technologies, and the like. Signal is leading the way of facilitating a conversation around cyber topics with a Cyber Edge quarterly feature, which we put in quarterly. It's a focus on cyber and cyber issues that go in the quarterly in Signal magazine. And we're excited to announce that it's the Cyber Edge Writing Contest supported by Mantech, a theme of emerging technologies in the cyber realm. And there's a pretty hefty prize for the first 3 winners in this. I think it's $5,000 if you're a writer that submits, or a team of writers that submits the award-winning feature article that will be published in Signal magazine. And there's 2 other awards that are given as well. The contest is open to government, academia, and industry at all levels and locations. And the purpose behind this is to try to develop some of the thought leadership that goes into and needs to go into looking at the cyber challenge that we all face that touches all aspects of government, industry, and academia. The best 3 articles, as I said, submitted will win a monetary prize, first prize being $5,000, and the winning article will be published in a magazine. So if you're looking to get published, if you've got great ideas, try it. The AFCEA team thanks all of you for joining us, and it's our hope that you have a successful week here in Baltimore. Should you need any assistance during the week, please visit the AFCEA booth again in the exhibit hall in room 327 upstairs. Now, as we begin our program, I'd personally like to thank Sienna and Lumen for their support of today's opening keynote address. They're represented by George Holland, Vice President and General Manager, Sienna Government Solutions, and Scott Barnett, Vice President and General Manager of Lumen's Department of Defense practice, and we're going to bring them up in just a minute. You know, AFCEA enjoys the relationship that we've got with the Department of Defense, the combatant commanders, the agencies, and the services to host these important discussions that we have. I'm going to tell you, those of you who may not know it, but I, as a major, was the department head of the P500, what was then the P500 division at what was DCAPAC and now DISAPAC back in the late 70s. And I learned more about communications and networking in that one job, and I developed relationships in that job, great relationship that lasted me throughout my career. I am a tremendous fan of DISA, and I want to thank all the members of DISA, whether you're a military, a contractor, or a civilian employee of DISA, for the great work that you do. The Department of Defense and other agencies in this government could not flourish in the manner they do without the tremendous support that you provide. On a day-to-day basis, you're probably invisible to the customer out there, but if you're not doing your job, it's quickly known. And I want to commend you for the great work you do. And you're provided great leadership and have been provided with great leadership throughout the years. And today, we're fortunate to have your present leader, Lieutenant General Bob Skinner. And Bob and I have something else in common. We were both the J6s for the Indo-PACOM region, and that is a very challenging position, as well as General Paul Fredenberg. He's here somewhere. So we've got two former Indo-PACOM J6s here on the AFCEA staff, and we're pleased that we've got a third one that is going to be giving the keynote address today. And we're honored to have the Director of DISA and Commander Joint Force Headquarters, DODIN, Lieutenant General Skinner, present our opening keynote and start the discussion on our conference. As a director, I think we all know that he manages and leads more than 8,000 military and civilian personnel who plan, develop, deliver, and operate joint interoperable command and control capabilities. They are the linchpin that ties it all together. And I could go on for a long period of time, but I'm not going to do that because I think it's more important you listen to General Skinner than you listen to me. So please join me in welcoming Lieutenant General Bob Skinner to the stage.
So good morning, Baltimore. How's everybody doing today? Yes, I understand that that was a horrible imitation of Robin Williams. And standing up here in front of you right now after Althea gave a great rendition of our national anthem and after that video, I think you're going to get the third best of those three things as we talk over the next 30, 45 minutes. But first off, good morning, and it's great to see everybody in person. I think the last count I had, Bob Shea, was about 4,000 registrants to this, which is just a little bit under the 2019 numbers, but more than the 2017. And we have exhibitors, like 221 exhibitors, which is in line with 2019. So with everything going on, still dealing with the pandemic, having this many individuals and companies supporting this effort as we continue to try and partner with AFCEA, partner with industry, academia, and the government. It's a great feeling to be out here and see. If you think about 2,500 years ago, the great Sun Tzu said, in the field of battle, the voice only carries so far. So what did that bring into? That brought into gongs, right? That brought into flags, that brought into torches, that brought into a whole bunch of other things to try and continue to expand and extend the ability of commanders and fielded forces to be able to communicate. So if you go to the first slide, and yes, we only have 2 slides for you today that we will talk about during this. So in the preceding 2,500 years, I'll say, to the early 1800s, it was basically the same thing, right? It was flags, it was torches, it was multiple flags. And then there was this, I'll say, medical professional. Chief Klink knows this well. Going from a medical professional to the communications and cyber world. Albert Mayer, who became the chief signal officer, was dabbling in the medical community, but also at night, he was working in a state telegraph office and organization. And he wanted to get into the Army, so he got in the Army as a surgeon to start with, but he never stopped dabbling and never stopped innovating. And he came up with the wigwag. Yes, I had to look this up multiple times when the team brought this to my attention. The wigwag, which is kind of the start of the signal corps, where instead of multiple flags, it was just one flag. And depending on how you wigged or you wagged, that is what you used to communicate across the battlefield. And he developed that, actually talked with Secretary of War Stinson at the time, got a pilot to be able, not an aircraft pilot, but a pilot to showcase this. And the Secretary of War said, this is good, let's start using this. And then at night they used lanterns, but it was a system, but it was still flags. And it was still, we hadn't made a lot of progress. Well, over the next couple years, as the chief of the signal officer, or chief signal officer, wasn't a signal corps yet, he worked on how could he bring what he learned at night school, or at night working in a telegraph office, to bring the telegraph capability, and I'll say 15,000 miles of wire to the fold during the Civil War. The other thing that they brought is they realized that on both sides they started stealing each other's signs and signals. So encryption and the ability to obfuscate what those signals are also came to be. And so Albert Mayer then became, and he started a lieutenant as a surgeon, then he became a major when he was the chief signal officer, and then was born the Signal Corps. And he was ended up as a brigadier general in charge of the Signal Corps. Why do we bring that up? I think in that period of 4 to 5 to 6 years, significant advancements were made in the ability to communicate, especially on the battlefield. And it took an individual who started off in one arena, working hand in hand and thinking about, as he worked in other projects and areas, innovatively thinking, how can we improve the ability to communicate? Which, at the heart of everything we do today, stands today. How do we continually to improve, whether it's the ability from a capacity standpoint, from an extension standpoint, from a secure standpoint, from a cyber defense standpoint, and also the ability to enable and disable the ability of an adversary to do what they want to do. So as we think about the past and continue to learn, Albert Mayer, to me, was at the heart of not only the Signal Corps, but bringing forth the innovative ideas of continually moving forward. Okay, next slide. The last 2 years, as everybody knows, has been very dynamic and very difficult in a lot of things. But I will tell you, DISA has a lot of their own Albert Myers that are working hand in hand with industry to continue to innovate and to improve. And all you got to look at is pre-pandemic. I think we were about 80% in the office at any one time to today, we're about 15 to 20% in the office at any one time. And I don't think anyone in industry has a different story than that. The ability to be mobile has significantly increased over the last couple of years to where we are truly a more mobile force, and we are continuing to improve on that. But I'd even say over the last 6 to 9 months, as you think about things that are happening either within DISA or within the Department of Defense, there has been significant changes. One of the things that our senior leadership team, we kind of sat down as we came on board over the last few months, and we said, where do we want to go, right? But first, as you think about where you want to go, you have to decide, what problem do you want to get after? So the problem statement that we really looked at hard and continue to look at is DISA's organizational design is too complex for best value. And is that true? And if that is true, then what do we need to do to improve? And I'll tell you, as you think about and look at that, organizational design is more than just an organizational structure. But that's usually where people start. And I'll tell you, that's kind of where we started as we look at what has happened over the last, I'll say, 6 months. Chris Barnhurst, who is sitting right here, is the deputy director at DISA. He kind of led a team that looked at, from a mission analysis standpoint, what do we need to focus on and what do we need to change? So working with that mission analysis group, we came up with an organizational structure to reduce complexity, enable greater interaction and collaboration with industry. And so we've really gone from, I'll say, 2 centers, right, left, as all you know that, to 4 centers with 4 leaders that I will tell you, the other thing that's happened over the last 6 months, 7 months, is we've had 5 or 6 of our senior leaders have retired, and we have new individuals in those places. So significant change. If you look at their organizational structure, there's 4 centers. The first one is, I'll say, enterprise capabilities and security. Focus on, if you think about DIOS, for example, if you think about security, and this is being led right now by Mr. Martin, which I know you'll have plenty of opportunities to talk with him. Driving forward on security, driving forward on our enterprise capabilities, along with having our JITIC organization as well as our spectrum operations. The second organization is what we call the hackers. Right? It's being led right now by the acting director, Sharon Woods, and that is the kind of hosting and computing. We brought the CCPO, our cloud computing office, and our ecosystem together to figure out, okay, what are we doing today and what are we doing in the future from a hosting and computing standpoint. The third area is our operations and infrastructure. Think of DoDNet, think of transport, think of our field commands and field offices, all within this organization that's working on operations and infrastructure. And then the last one, which we realized we really didn't have an organization focused on innovation. We didn't have a chief data officer even, someone focused on data. So we have an organization called Enterprise Integration and Innovation, being led by Roger Greenwell. And they're really focused on how do we integrate and how do we innovate for the future. And an organization that we put in there was our Risk Management Executive, which is focused on RMF, which, yes, I know that's a 4-letter word in a lot of instances. And so we are working on how do we, in an innovation organization, how do we innovate RMF to help support the department in driving and moving forward. So that's kind of the reorganization that has happened over the last last 4 or 5 months. Just started on 1 October, and I know Mr. Barnhurst will talk a little bit about this in the fireside chat. So along with that, we have our strategic plan, which you'll see up here. And we actually have 2 strategic plans, one for JFHQ-DODIN and one for DISA. And I'll tell you, the number one area in my eyes continues to be command and control. As a combat support agency, we cannot fail in the ability to deliver command and control to our senior leaders. The President of the United States has to have the gold standard for command and control. The Secretary of Defense has to have the gold standard for the ability to command and control. Our combatant commanders and our fielded forces. So everybody here's JADC2, right? And where we're moving with JADC2. DISA, in my eyes, is at the heart of command and control. It's at the heart of JADC2. I would offer there is no mission in the department that is not going to require the ability in some form or fashion with the capabilities that are provided under command and control. That's why we are prioritizing command and control. On the JFHQ-DODIN side, as an operational level C2 headquarters, there's nothing more important than the ability to command and control the 45 now, Paul, not 44 anymore. We added one since you left. DODIN AOs, Area of Operations. So the ability to command and control those forces and those organizations to then secure, operate, and defend their section of the DODIN, there is nothing more important. In order to do that, you got to organize that battle space, which is why we organized it, which is why one of our efforts right now is how do we make sure that 100% of the DODIN is covered by someone or some organization. Just in case nobody knows, the DODIN is made up of 300 million IPv4 address spaces. 300 million. Everybody goes, well, is that a lot or not? I'll tell you, that is the 3rd largest block of addresses in the world. The first one is the United States, which we are a part of. The second one is China. And the DoD is about 30 million behind China if you look at it from an open source standpoint. That's very expansive. And so the ability to command and control that and secure, operate, and defend that is very important, and you have to organize that. So that's kind of, I'll say, the biggest things that we're trying to do. So on the JFHQ-DODIN side, it's streamlining that command and control. And on the DISA side, it is how do we prioritize that? Second area that we kind of look at is how do we drive force readiness through innovation? And this is where, while we have a section in DISA that's focused on that, I'm really looking at industry to help us innovate, help us drive that force readiness into the future. All we got to do is look at the fiscal pressures that are today and or coming, and realizing that we are not going to be successful without innovation. And I need your help. As an example, let's talk enterprise licensing. I'm a firm believer, as a Department of Defense, of enterprise licenses. I need industry's help to not play the services against each other on pricing, so that the Navy gets a better deal than the Air Force, or the Air Force gets a better deal than the Army, or a better deal than what DISA is trying to provide from an agency standpoint. The department needs the best value. And so your help in that is appreciated as we move forward. Another thing that we deal with from a force readiness and innovation standpoint, everybody's heard about Thunderdome, right? This is kind of how the department's moving forward as we implement zero trust principles. Your help in helping us innovate through that is important. Steve Wallace, who's in our emerging technologies, he's leading our identity credentialing, and access management. We will not be successful in the future if we don't have the right identity management. Some here have heard me say, kill the CAC. The CAC card, not cat, CAC card. What do I mean by that? And it's interesting, you're always told never read comments on any article that is written. The comments are very interesting if you ever look at an article that talks about kill the CAC. The CAC has been an amazing identity piece of the puzzle from a security standpoint. It's 10, 15 years old. There is technology out there today that is far better than the CAC to be the primary authentication mechanism for the department. That's what we're looking for. And so if you combine the identity with the credentialing, with the access management, those three together to truly have multi-factor authentication, that, oh, by the way, it doesn't just start and or stop with initial access. It is, we don't trust, we continually verify and validate, assume breach, and then you develop or you work with industry on the technologies to build the SASE and the SD-WAN for the future environment so that you can do better at microsegmentation, right? You can do better at not having all of these different security appliances in between the user and the data that user needs to have access to include the warfighter. Bringing all them together, that's what we're looking for. And so that's kind of and I know Dr. Landris and many others will be talking about Thunderdome throughout, but that's where we're looking at from a force readiness standpoint and how do we best innovate. Another one is how do we leverage data as a center of gravity? I will tell you there is so much data out there, it makes your head spin. And we are, I'll say, losing a lot of that data because it's either going into a bit bucket or it's not being seen, it's not being logged because for whatever reasons. How do we better leverage data as a center of gravity? Because if you own the data and you have the data as a strategic asset of yours, then you're going to own the high ground at the end of the day. And so we're standing up as a CDO in our innovation area. And so your help and ability to help us, even as a department, get after the data. How do we leverage AI? How do we leverage ML? All these IT bingo words that you can use. That's where we need your help as we drive that forward. And that includes on the JFHQ-DODIN side, right? How do we, I'll tell you, automation is going to be our Achilles heel. And how do we leverage automation and how do we get after that and being able to successfully use that in the time and tempo of our needs is important. Just coming out of the Indo-PACOM theater, as General Shea mentioned, we saw day in, day out what the Chinese were doing to change the rules-based international order. And it is daily, and they're moving fast. So we've got to have a stronger pace and a stronger velocity as we move forward. The other area, which is kind of a quest that we have, is user experience and cybersecurity. As we talked about Thunderdome and actually eliminating and removing security appliances and other appliances in between the user and the data so that performance is better. I mean, if you want to crush the will of an individual, have them log in periodically. And it takes too long. We have too many different appliances that don't all work well together. So the ability to optimize what we have and what you've sold us and what you've given us, that's also high on our plate. Because we've got to get after this user experience and cybersecurity and how do you harmonize those to bring those together. Because users are smart and they'll get around something. And getting around something is worse than driving through it because now you open up other security holes and things like that. And then the final piece I'll say in all of this is empowering the workforce. Driving a culture, ensuring talent management. I was reading an article the other day, there's like 600,000 cybersecurity positions that are unfilled in the United States and like 3.5 million globally. That means we're all kind of challenged and competing for the same workforce and the same expertise, which really brings the partnerships together, which is kind of our last area is on partnerships. And how do we continue to partner, whether it's academia, whether it's industry, whether it's the organizations like FCA that bring us together, and the Department of Defense. We have a phrase that we call institutional silliness. And how do you drive institutional silliness out of organizations? Because that makes you ineffective and it makes you inefficient. And I would offer industry can help us by helping us identify those things. Because sometimes the emperor has no clothes on, and your ability to help us to try and get after the policies and the guidance, whether it's acquisition related or other things, that how do we get rid of the institutional silliness so that every single individual, every single organization is able to drive to a greater future and be the best of themselves? How do we have the right education? How do we have the right training? Those are things that we're looking for and need your help from an industry standpoint. How do we optimize what we have today? But we've got to jump into the future faster. And so all of these priorities, these lines of efforts, are all underpinned by two phrases. The first one is velocity of action to win. Speed, just for speed's sake, just gets you further into the woods. It's like a golfer who can hit it 300 yards, but if it's 300 yards into the woods, and I know some of you golfers out here, I've played with you before, and you know who I'm talking about. We need direction and speed to get after this, to stay ahead of the fight. And the second one is what we call transparency of understanding. The ability to understand the context around the data, around the information, around the costing, so that we can have a true discussion on best value. And with that, I think I just hit the 0000. And I'll open up for any questions.
Thank you, General Skinner. We have time for one question.
Oh, sorry. You think I planned that?
With the Indo-Pacific as the U.S. military's primary priority domain, DISA has focused over the last several years in building capabilities in Guam and the surrounding region. How do you see this effort continuing in the near term? How can DISA support the region more?
I will tell you that the Indo-Pacific theater is the #1 priority. And as such, we as an agency have that throughout the agency. And so working with DISA-PAC, working with Indo-PACOM, continuing to identify areas where we can improve. And I'll tell you, if you think of Thunderdome and the work that we're trying to do there, the emphasis is on the Pacific. So I think a lot of what we are doing is prioritized and focused on the Pacific, and it will continue to. Not that we're going to leave everyone else behind.
That was our final question for General Skinner.
Okay, well, so I'll be around for next couple of days. Look forward to talking with industry. Look forward to meeting everyone. I'll be at the social tonight, and look forward to, if you had questions, happy to have them then. Oh.
Please welcome General Shea to the stage.
Do you have more questions for General Skinner? Let's have them.
Okay. How are fiscal year 2022 budget efforts aligned with your new strategy and internal agency revamping?
My perfect view of that would be it aligns perfectly. I'll offer the reason that we did the reorganization on 1 October, the reason we did the strategy on 1 October was to align the strategy, the resources, and the organizational structure and design all around the same priorities. Is it 100%? No. But where it's not, we're continuing to move forward. The one thing I didn't say that I was going to is we also have this, who likes spas, right? And a day at the spa. I know there's a lot of people out there, you can raise your hands, yes. So we're going to do that within DISA too, and we're calling it a day at the spa, where we have a strategic program assessment to where we are doing a zero-based review of every single program, every single resource, to include dollars and positions, to make sure that we are aligned with the priorities, but more importantly, that we understand where the requirement came from, how that requirement has changed over the years, depending on how many years it is, and where the gaps and the shortfalls are. So it's a day at the spa, probably a little bit different than most people would think a day at spa, and the individuals, the program managers who are going to go through this probably won't feel the same after the spa that they have in their personal lives. But that's what we're doing over the next year to make sure that we are really focused on those priorities, but also setting us up for fiscal year 24 in the PALM process.
Thank you. How is DISA addressing the increasing supply chain cyber attacks, such as the recent attacks?
So I will say from a JFHQ-DODIN and a DISA standpoint, the supply chain attacks are another priority that we add to the whole Department of Defense Information Networks, and working hand in hand with our defense industrial base partners, working hand in hand with NSA, working hand in hand with the IC community, continuing to drive and protect the supply chains that are critical to all of our mission sets across the department. We have a mission assurance organization, actually within both organizations, that are continually looking at the different threats, because I would offer it's not just supply chain threats. I was listening to Kevin Mandiant the other day, and he mentioned that in 2021 and 2022, that malware, ransomware, and zero-day attacks are going to be at all-time highs. And that's across the board. And whether you agree or disagree with that, I think you can just look at what's happening across the globe and realize that cybersecurity and cyber posture needs to be at an all-time high.
How does DISA plan to use 5G technology?
Extensively. You need more? Now,
With the data?
So here's what I'll say is, we are continually looking at how do you have a hybrid approach to the ability to get data and get information to anywhere in the battle space, right? Whether it's in competition, whether it's in crisis and or conflict, whether it's at the tactical edge, all the way to the strategic. How do we continue? So we leverage undersea, we leverage terrestrial, we leverage space, especially LEO, right? If you look at the proliferation of LEO over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be significantly, it's going to be extensive. And so we're continue to look at how do we leverage all three of those, plus anything else, to make sure that that we can get, the DevSecOps activity to the endpoint. We can get all the information required across the board.
With the DecSecDef's 5 data decrees, how is DISA planning to balance the CDO and CISO with the CDO charged to be in charge of data security versus the CISOs securing the network?
Phew. Here's what I'd offer. We talked a little bit about like the user experience and cybersecurity. To me, this is no difference. It's working together as a partner and as a team to drive to the best outcomes, because at the end of the day, this is about outcomes. And so working together, whether it's the chief data officer, the CISO, and I'd say, and there's others as part of that team, continuing to work together and partner to produce the right outcome. I don't know if there is one size fits all on that.
This is our final question, for real. With the need for faster innovation and solution, how is DISA balancing that with current time frame for certification and accreditation to get solution into the DODIN before they are outdated?
Okay, somebody's clapping. Here's what I'll say. The reason, and I know I'll repeat this, the reason we put RMF in with our innovation center is to drive that, right? How do we truly get at a risk-managed environment versus a risk-averse environment? And this is across the board. This isn't just within DISA. This is across the entire department. And understanding who owns that risk and who has the authority to address that risk. That's how we're driving it. And I'm all ears from an industry perspective, because this continues to be a big challenge. The other part about all this is, how do we get from an administrative paperwork drill, I'll say, as we look at all the security controls and really get after a continuous ATO and really get after what are those critical items that we really need to have from a security standpoint, and then the other ones, what risk are we really accepting, and then moving forward. That's where we really need to get to, and that's what we're driving to.
Thank you, General Skinner. Please welcome General Shea back to the stage.
Trial by fire, good job.
Well, I want to thank General Skinner. I'll tell you, I love the film that you started out with. Really what it did to me, it focused on the ultimate user, and it reminds everybody in here that you are a combat support agency, and I know that's your focus, and I take great comfort in that. A few takeaways, there's several takeaways, but a couple that hit me real hard. Number one, the workforce issue that everybody's dealing with, partnerships, and you'll see that throughout the course of the week here, and it'll be hit home hard on Friday with the forecast to industry. This notion, this critical notion of velocity action to win. And then finally, the transparency, which is critical, and the ability for all of us to work together to solve the problems that are out in front of us. General Skinner, I want to thank you for joining us here today, and in lieu of a speaker gift, we're going to make a donation to the Fisher House on your behalf. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to invite Scott Bennett from Lumen and George Holland from Sienna to join me here on the stage. I'm going to turn it over to you.
General Shea, General Skinner, IFCA membership. Sienna Government Solutions is grateful and proud for the opportunity afforded to us by IFCA to not only contribute to the current national defense community, but to also help that next generation of member and leader who's coming up through the ranks. So we're very proud of our role in the education of that next generation. So General Shea, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to say something? Sure. Scott?
Hi, thank you, General Shea. Thank you, General Skinner. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, not only this year, but every year supporting the mission. And for me, it's super exciting to be here in person. And I appreciate everyone's courage to come out and participate. And I heard the attendance number a few minutes ago. That's just amazing. General, we stand ready to help you as a member of industry for whatever you need, and we'd love to help you with those 300 million IP addresses. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, the AFC Education Foundation is pleased to announce its continued partnership with Siena, who raised their financial commitment in support of education. This year, Siena committed over $30,000 to provide teacher grants of up to $3,000 each for STEM learning and STEM activities. Please join us in thanking them for their continued commitment. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we've compressed our main agenda to 2 days this year, and you can see the upcoming schedule on the, well, I guess they're not on the screen, but anyway, you've got it on your handhelds and your devices. So now we're going to move to a coffee break in the exhibit hall. We're grateful to SuperTech for providing coffee during the break. Again, thank you for joining this morning, and enjoy the break. We look forward to seeing you back here at noon. Thank you.